So, picture this, the Oval Office, the place where big, important decisions are supposed to happen. But on May 20th, 2025, it felt more like a movie premiere, folks. President Cyril Ramaphosa flew all the way from South Africa, probably expecting some serious talks about trade, minerals, presidential stuff. Instead, he walked into a surprise screening. Donald Trump, ever the showman, had a whole presentation ready. He dimmed the lights. I'm not making this up. He actually dimmed the lights for a special video on a big TV screen. It was like, "Welcome to the White House. Please grab your 3D glasses." The only thing missing was the popcorn, really. This wasn't just any home movie. Oh no, Trump presented a dramatic 4-minute video, a collection of press clippings, and even some aerial footage supposedly showing mass graves. It was all designed to paint a picture of white genocide in South Africa. He was hitting Ramaphosa with choreographed accusations, claiming the South African government was systematically targeting white farmers, seizing their land, and even executing them. It was a full-blown Trump production, complete with a narrative that certain corners of the internet absolutely adore. You could almost hear the dramatic movie trailer voice in a land where farmers face an unspeakable terror. It was intense, to say the least. The material, as you might guess, was a greatest hits album of misinformation. We're talking debunked montages featuring radical opposition leaders, stuff carefully curated to scream crisis. It was like someone spent a weekend on YouTube and decided they were an expert on South African land reform. Trump confidently presented this as undeniable proof, claiming there were thousands of stories and documentaries backing him up. He was fully committed to the bit, which, you have to admit, is a consistent Trump trait. He doesn't do things by halves, especially when there's a camera and a captive audience, even if that audience is a visiting head of state. Poor Ramaphosa. He probably thought he was there to discuss the African Growth and Opportunity Act, maybe talk about those critical minerals South Africa supplies to the US. Instead, he got an ambush cinema experience, complete with a lecture from President Trump on the supposed horrors unfolding back home. Imagine preparing for a complex negotiation on import tariffs, and then suddenly you're watching a highlight reel of fear-mongering. It's the political equivalent of a bait-and-switch White House edition. Come for the trade talks, stay for the terrifying factually challenged video presentation. Only in America, folks. Or, well, in Trump's America. Now, if someone ambushed me with a horror film about my own country, especially one that's, shall we say, creatively edited, I might lose my cool, I might stand up, shout a bit, maybe flip a table, get dramatic. But Cyril Ramaphosa, the man was the definition of stoic. He sat there, watched the whole dramatic presentation, listened to Trump's fiery accusations, and then just calmly responded. It was like watching a Zen master deal with a particularly loud, insistent pigeon. He showed remarkable composure, a true masterclass in how to handle an Oval Office ambush with grace and a steady pulse. Ramaphosa gently but firmly pushed back. He explained that yes, South Africa has a problem with crime, like many countries do, but this narrative of a targeted white genocide, not accurate. He pointed out that violence is due to criminality and sadly affects all demographics. In fact, he highlighted that the majority of crime victims in South Africa are actually black people. It's a crucial point, often lost in the sensational headlines. He wasn't downplaying the seriousness of crime, but he was correcting the deliberately skewed racial narrative Trump was pushing. It was a quiet, dignified mic drop. Later, Ramaphosa even remarked that he sensed there is doubt in Trump's head about the whole genocide claim. That's a polite way of saying, I think he knows this is a bit much even for him. It takes a certain kind of confidence to sit across from the US president in his own office, while he's essentially calling your country a failed state, and then suggest he's not entirely convinced by his own argument. Ramaphosa also emphasized the need for Trump to listen to the South Africans present in the room, a subtle nudge towards, hey, maybe talk to the people who actually live there, a novel concept apparently. The South African president's demeanor was so unruffled it was almost comical in contrast to the high drama Trump was trying to create. Trump was all fire and brimstone, showcasing his evidence with the flair of a TV trial lawyer. Ramaphosa, on the other hand, was the calm economics professor, patiently explaining the socio-economic realities. It was a fascinating study in contrasting styles, one playing to the cameras and a specific political base, the other focused on facts and diplomatic dignity. In a world of shouty politics, Ramaphosa's quiet defiance was surprisingly powerful, proving you don't need to scream to be heard. President Ramaphosa wasn't alone in this White House whirlwind, thankfully. He brought a delegation, and it wasn't just your usual lineup of stern-faced diplomats. No, sir. He had golfing legends Ernie Els and Retief Goosen with him. Maybe he thought a friendly round of golf could smooth things over. Or perhaps they were there to offer tips on Trump's swing, both on the course and in his political attacks. Billionaire Johan Rupert was also part of the crew, alongside a prominent Labour leader. It was an eclectic mix, a sort of Team South Africa, the Unexpected Allies edition, ready for whatever the Oval Office threw at them. Adding to the surreal nature of the gathering, South African-born billionaire Elon Musk, a known Trump supporter, was also present. One wonders if he was there to mediate or perhaps to discuss rocket designs if the trade talks went south. The presence of Agriculture Minister Jan Steenhuisen was particularly crucial. Interestingly, Steenhuisen is from the Afrikaner Party, which is part of South Africa's Government of National Unity. When Trump's video featured radical opposition leaders, Steenhuisen was right there to point out, Mr. President, those guys aren't exactly speaking for the government, you know. Talk about an awkward fact check in real time. The South African delegation members, including Minister Steenhuisen, really stepped up. They collectively emphasized that the issue in South Africa is one of general crime and a rural safety problem. It's something that affects both white and black farmers, not a targeted, state-sanctioned genocide against one group. This united front was important. It wasn't just Ramaphosa saying it. It was a broader group, including an Afrikaner minister, reinforcing the message. They were essentially trying to douse the flames of misinformation with a bucket of cold, hard reality, which is never an easy task in that particular office. Ramaphosa later admitted his delegation could perhaps have been better briefed for the cinematic ambush. You think? It's like preparing for a chess match and your opponent shows up with a paintball gun. Still, they improvised pretty well. They presented a cohesive counter-narrative, stressing the complexities of South Africa's situation rather than the simplistic, scary story Trump was selling. It showed that despite the surprise, Team South Africa could hold its own, even when the script was suddenly flipped to a genre they weren't expecting. It was a tough gig, but they managed to keep their cool mostly. Now, this whole dramatic encounter wasn't a private affair. Oh no, Trump loves an audience. Reporters were allowed in the Oval Office for over an hour, witnessing the tense exchanges. This is classic Trump turning a diplomatic meeting into a reality TV show. During this media scrum, Trump, true to form, also lashed out at an NBC reporter who dared to ask about a $400 million jet, allegedly from Qatar. He called for an investigation into NBC News and criticized other US media. It was a sideshow to the main event, but a very Trumpian sideshow nonetheless, full of bluster and deflection. Amidst this, Ramaphosa, ever the cool customer, managed to land a zinger. When Trump was ranting about the jet and gifts, Ramaphosa quipped with perfect comedic timing, "I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you." The room probably chuckled. Even Trump seemed to take it in stride, replying, "I wish you did. I would take it. If your country offered the US Air Force a plane, I would take it." It was a moment of levity in an otherwise charged atmosphere. A little reminder that sometimes humor is the best defense against absurdity. Ramaphosa showed he could play the game even on Trump's unpredictable field. The significance of Ramaphosa's composure cannot be overstated. He faced a barrage of misinformation, a choreographed attack on his country's reputation, all while the cameras rolled, and he didn't flinch. He stood his ground, corrected the record, and did so with dignity. This matters hugely for US-South Africa relations, which were already a bit tense. Remember, this meeting happened amidst the US granting refugee status to some white Afrikaners based on these very claims of persecution, a move that didn't exactly thrill Pretoria. Trump had even threatened to curtail trade and possibly skip the G20 summit in South Africa. So Ramaphosa's cool defiance was more than just a personal victory, it was a diplomatic necessity. South Africa was also in town to negotiate the continuation of crucial trade terms, with the current 10% import tariff on most goods set to expire in July 2025. The US was demanding lower tariffs. With these high stakes, showing weakness or losing his temper could have been disastrous. Instead, Ramaphosa projected an image of calm strength, a leader unfazed by bluster. Polls back in South Africa were mixed on his performance, but on the international stage he demonstrated that even in the face of a White House showdown, South Africa would not be easily railroaded.